February 21st, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Brian Bennett, is he here? He wants to give the invocation? Dr. Bennett's not here. Okay, so please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Present.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mrs. Zudans?
Here.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Catuno?
Here.
Okay, preliminary matters. Approval of the February 26, 2023 regular city minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Approved.
Mrs. Zudans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Catuno?
Yes.
So, 2/11/11 Awareness Month proclamation.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. Agenda additions,
Oh,
deletions.
excuse me. Thank you. Agenda additions, deletions, and adoptions.
Mr. Mayor. Staff would like to add 9C, brief discussion on the Power Squadron lease agreement. City Manager's Matters. And request that 9A be moved to just before item 8, if we could, please.
So,
I've got a change as well.
okay, and what's that?
What you got?
I've got a correction to historical meeting minutes from December 6, 2022.
Okay.
And we put that under, I guess, old business. Right?
Yes?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but no business to be fine.
So we're just going to become an item number 5 then. Under old business, you want to correct? 12 what? 12, what date, what was it?
December 6, 2022 meeting minutes.
And any other additions and corrections? To entertain a motion?
Motion to approve with changes.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Zudans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Catuno?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Now we got proclamations and recognitions.
I am very pleased to give the following proclamation. 2/11 Awareness Month is the month of February, and they do some really great work for the community, and we are lucky to have them. Whereas 211 Helpline and Crisis Line continues to be that beacon of hope, providing life-saving crisis support and guidance when people are overwhelmed and don't know where to turn. And whereas during these challenging times that include pandemic impact and economic instability and recent hurricanes, 211's caring and highly trained staff have been the frontline responders 24/7 throughout it all. And whereas 211 also has specialized advocacy and support programs for the community that include caregiver support, Help Me Grow, and 211's life-saving Sunshine daily calls, which continue to brighten the lives of isolated seniors and caregivers. And whereas 211 also responds to the 988 Lifeline number and support lines that include first responders and My Florida Vet for veterans with peer-to-peer support, providing assistance to these specialized groups and their families. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby proclaim February of 2023 as 211 Awareness Month and urge all citizens to be aware that if they are overwhelmed and in crisis or just need to talk, 211 is available any time of the day or night. 211 staff can also provide referrals for mental health, counseling, substance abuse, healthcare, employment, food assistance, daycare, support groups, volunteering, VITA, free income tax preparation, and so much more. And accepting this proclamation is Chad Adcock? Yes. Fantastic.
Come down,
Oh, do you want to say something?
if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Chad Adcock with 211, and I just want to thank the mayor and vice mayor and council for bringing awareness to what we do. 211 has been the crisis line and helpline in this area for approximately 50 years. And I bet if I had done a poll, and I'm not going to, if I'd done a poll, probably about 50% of the people here had never even heard of us. So that tells me that I've still got work to do to bring awareness to the services that we offer. And you read many of those things, and there are many more that we do as well. And anything that anyone needs, they can certainly just dial, it's just 3 digits, 211, and get more information about it. So recently, we know that our call volume has increased. About 20% of the calls that take place on the Treasure Coast for 211 come from Indian River County, and specifically most of those come from Vero Beach. So I want to thank you for bringing awareness, and yet there's still work to be done as far as the main concerns that we see out there right now are mental health. Those call volumes are increasing. Housing and substance abuse, those calls are increasing as well. And we know those concerns are prevalent here in Vero Beach and all across the Treasure Coast and all across the 5 counties that we service. And I just wanted to close with a little story that recently took place when someone from Vero Beach called in to our staff recently. She called, the lady's name was Dahlia. She called and spoke to our staff member named Amy. Dahlia is a visually impaired person who her hours had recently been cut as a result of the pandemic, and so she had found it difficult to pay for her bills and utilities. So our staff member Amy was able to connect her with resources that were available and some of the different services that were out there. And Dahlia left the conversation very thankful to Amy to get the help that she needed. So especially with the mental health crisis that we're in and all of the other issues that are going on, even if you just want to talk to somebody, if you're having a rough day, 211 is there. And I encourage everyone to simply dial that number. And thanks again. Thank you so much for bringing awareness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Good work.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any comment and motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
roll call, please?
Mr. Neville,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mrs. Udance,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Coutinho.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you might call for public comment on any consent agenda items.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda items? Thank you. So ordinances, resolutions. So item number 5 is public comment. This is public comment on any issue that is not on the agenda for today. I'd like to open it up for public comment at 310 PM.
My name is Joseph Gafanti, and I live at 441 Holly Road. I did something unusual. I prepared a presentation, but it all got washed away when I saw what happened with something outside. And what I'm going to talk about anyway is the live oak trees and the handling thereof. And I asked the city clerk to give you 2 photographs. Do you have them?
We saw them, yes.
The one has a bunch of branches on it, small branches. Do you see that?
We don't have them here. We got them weeks ago.
And the other one, these photographs were taken on my street while I was standing in the road. The second picture shows a group of logs, if you will, that were cut off an oak tree. Well, let me start. I have to change what I'm going to say. Let me start out by saying that a friend of mine lives in South Carolina, and he told me that the state has, not the county and the cities or whatever towns, but the state has a code specifically to handle live oaks, trees. And I visited him a couple times, and he lives in a magnificent community just loaded with live oaks. And according to him, you can't touch a tree almost. So unfortunately, this happened, and the owner asked me while I was standing taking pictures if he could do anything for me, and I said no. And then he said he was having he volunteered this, I didn't ask him. He said that he was having the trees trimmed, cutting the dead branches off. You can see that these branches aren't dead. They have these pictures were taken a couple months ago. And the leaves are green. And that's what's going on. Now, the reason why I changed it is right outside here in the parking lot, there's live oaks, and they're all trimmed as if they were palm trees. All the lower branches were cut off. I called the city about this. I wanted somebody I talked to somebody, and I wanted him to come over, and we made arrangements for him to come over and to see what the trees looked like, and he never responded. So we were supposed to come over on a Friday and didn't show up. But apparently, this is acceptable practice in the state of Florida to trim these trees. I'm not an arborist, and you don't need an arborist to realize that these trees have been here for hundreds of years, and I doubt that the Native Americans who lived here 200 years ago, they had chainsaws and went around trimming the trees. So I really can't do anything about it. The county's doing it. You're letting this happen. Oh, by the way, this tree cutting activity was done on a Saturday and a Sunday when your code guy is someplace. That's it. That's just so you know.
Thank you.
Monty, we're expecting a tree ordinance soon, are we not?
Yes, we are.
How soon?
Jason, you have an update on the date of the tree ordinance?
Jason Jeffries, Planning Development Director. It has been to the Planning and Development Board for their recommendation, and expect you'll have it in March for your first reading.
Thank you, Jason. Any other public comment? So at 3:14 p.m., we'll close public comment, and we'll get to our city council matters, new business, presentation of the new World War II tribute. Colonel Young?
Good afternoon. I just want to take the opportunity to share with you a little bit this afternoon. And before I begin, I just want to introduce some of the team members that are here with me. John, Michael Matthews, of course, I think you know, and Barbara Ruddy. And our other team members that are not able to be here is Terry Treat, he's the new president for the Military Officers Association, and Carol Oates. And Carol is currently receiving chemotherapy, so he's not available. But the other person I wanted to mention as well is our architect, which is Jeff Ray. And thank you for allowing me to come here and update you. And the goal is quite simple. I want to share with you the progress that we've made in regards to the World War II tribute, and to obtain your continued support. And with that, I'd like to begin with a video. So, Sherry, if you would. Hello, Indian River County friends and family. Tony Young here. On behalf of the World War II tributes, Keegan and Picard, let's share their pride of service. Picard is priceless. Let's share their pride of service. It's our duty. Gold Star families. And we'll have to start over in the beginning, just slide it over. By those that carry on. They want to preserve the memory of their sons and daughters. Yeah, just begin from the start, because the audio's, it's muted for some reason. Hello, Indian River County friends and family. No? Young here. On behalf of the World War II tribute.
Not going into their sound system for whatever reason.
Probably.
I don't know. Bosnia and Iraq. Hang on. Also, World War II tribute update to share. With the help of many incredible civic and veteran organizations, local veteran friends, and families, we are making great progress in creating a beautiful tribute to the veterans who triumphed when called to service. No, it's not coming through for some reason. November, the city of Vero Beach approved. Okay. Well, you can see the visual for the video, and I'll speak to it.
Still looks
It's only 2 minutes, and I'll let it finish. Sanctuary with a permanent reviewing stand, intimate and grand ceremonies. Recognition for all World War II soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and their families. I think most of you have been to Memorial Island, but this is a depiction from one of the media companies here in town, and just illustrating the island and its beauty, as well as the importance of it to our community. And you can see this is a visualization of the rendering animation with the logos that are there, as well as the sailcloth and the heroic advocates with your wonderful support. The witness of the remaining band of brothers and sisters, like that of local World War II veterans Keegan and Picard, is priceless. Let's share their pride of service. It's our duty. Gold Star families of every war understand the cost. It is borne by those that carry on. They want to preserve the memory of their sons and daughters. We do too. The highly decorated doughboy, World War I soldier, and public servant Alex McWilliam said it so well. Lest we forget the supreme sacrifice made by those of all wars. Please help keep the community-wide momentum, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a lasting legacy. Donate to the Cultural Council of Indian River County, the World War II Tribute, by check to 1216 21st Street, Vero Beach, Florida, 32960, or online at www.cultural-council.org. I think we will try again on the video. We'll let it go with that. But what was important, not only with the visualization of the island, was as we've moved forward over the last 6 months, we've been able to reach out to some remnants of World War II that are still alive. These men are 95, 97, 98 years old. And 2 of them were depicted there, just snapshots, one of which was a Marine that lives in Wabasso, who is a young man on Tinian in the islands of the Pacific, where the B-29 bombers left to complete the war in the Pacific. And then the other one that was there was a sailor. You may have noticed him. And these men met with us after Pearl Harbor Day at the Post 39, the American Legion. And to hear their accounts of what they did 80 years ago, whatever, 75 years ago, just attest to what it means to be a selfless patriot that's dedicated to what we hold so dearly. And I think it's a byproduct of the fact that we were trying to accomplish this permanent reviewing stand out on the island. And looking at the outreach that we've been able to accomplish, I think you would be very pleased. There are over 20 civic and veteran organizations throughout Indian River County that we were able to talk to. And when you say, well, who are you talking, what do you mean? We're looking at the Rotaries, we're looking at all of the organizations that would have us come there. And inevitably, the members of the organizations have family members that have served in the past, and the opportunity for them to learn that we are going to be able to recognize their contributions is really, really significant. Case in point, this last weekend, we had a concert out at the Elks Club, and one of the ladies that was a benefactor mentioned that her dad was not only a veteran of World War II, but a veteran of Korea and the veteran of Vietnam. And I was amazed at the fact that he had done so much. And I think the significance of what we're doing on the island is something that reflects her family and their background. I'd also like to just kind of bring you up to speed in regards to funding, because everything evolves on our ability to pay for what we would like to do. We began in June, shortly thereafter, with a major grant of $100,000, and subsequent to that, we've raised nearly another $100,000. And then as we went back and I looked at the services in kind over the last 6 months, it is something that means a great deal to me, because from the very beginning, I wanted this to be a community-wide effort, not simply an expression of a select group. And as you look at the services that have come across, you can look at the media that's helped us with the videos here that we've used for outreach. You can look at the engineering firms, MBV Engineering, Schulke, Stoddard, and SBS, okay? And then even today, I was fortunate to be out on Memorial Island, and we had SKM, what was it? KSM, there you go, KSM come out onto the island. And for a local to be there, the gentleman came across the Cenotaph Square, and I was not berating him, I was poking at him because he was a little bit late. And I asked him if he'd come from Fort Pierce or maybe Okeechobee. And I said, who are you? And he says, well, my grandfather was a part of the island. And I said, okay, well, I'm Tony Young. And I said, well, what's your name? He says, Edgar. And I said, E.S. McWilliam? And he said, yeah. And E.S. McWilliam is the engineering firm that's going to come out to the island and do the soil boring. Okay, and as I told E.S., I said, listen, I need to know what the cost will be associated with this, because I need to project that. And he says, Tony, we've got to take it care of. And I said, well, listen, for contributions in kind, we need to know. And that's what I'm sharing with you, because the community, whether it's engineering, whether it's survey, whether it's media, whether it's pick a skill set that we need. I mentioned engineering, but even architecture has been very supportive. And then that leads me into the next area, and that is to express the incredible support that the city has provided to us from the very beginning. And many people looking at this were like, city's supporting you? Kind of the question mark. And I'll share with you, the council, okay, across the board has been supportive. And I want to say from my heart, thank you for what you've done. And, it may be outright economic support, it may be support behind the scenes, but it is support that makes this come together. And I realize that. the city clerk's office, I mean, the beachside bonfire, which we were a part of, contributed to funding of it. If you look at the video help that's happened, if you look at documentation, you look at staff coordination, you look at cemetery research, all of the city clerk's office are integral with that. If you look at Jason and city planning, we would not be here today had it not been the concerted effort that went on prior to the election to help us with the referendum item there, because we did not know what way it was going to go, and the implications would have set us back a year if it had gone otherwise. You talk about legal counsel. John, thank you. I mean, the support that we had, and just in questions that I have for that. Cindy, with the funding for the bridge, I mean, if the bridge hadn't come together and funding for the bridge, it would have set us back as well. And Matt in Public Works, Richard, Danessa, Nanette, across the board, those people have helped us. And then finally, Recreation Services, again, they're integral to what we do. And Monty, facilitating the way this goes forward. Because just like what happened about 3 weeks ago, you don't know where the ball is going to come out of left field. And the left field ball that came out, 3 weeks ago was the mitigation for oysters for the bridge, okay? Who would have expected mitigating, having to transplant oysters? But the likely time frame for beginning construction for the tribute will likely begin after the bridge, which we're anticipating to be completed by October timeframe. So that leaves us November, 4 months plus, to make that come together if we're successful. And lastly, not lastly, but a part of this is I wanted to reach out to everybody on the council and ask if you have any questions of me or the group here as we're moving forward in regards to the tribute. Questions, concerns?
No?
No, you're doing a great job.
Just one question regarding funding. How close are you? You have a goal. How close are you to the actual dollar goal that you had set yourself, Colonel?
We will not know the exact cost, because I'm a biology major, until the architect and the structural engineers and the construction, Robert Paul, give us the final figures. I'm anticipating that we should be able to complete this with $50K more, okay, that we have. That we'll cross the bridge, but I believe that'll be the case. Some of this is related to availability of supplies, or what the supplies will cost, or what the specific amounts would be. But again, I'll share with you another, a joy for me is, as you look at the monument and you look at the metals on the back pillars, the thought is, well, who locally can make that come together? Who has the talent to make that? And if you look at Royal Palm Point, where the fountain is, and you look at the mosaics there, who did that? That was Sharon Sexton.
Yes.
And we met with Sharon Sexton a month or so ago, and with her partner. And last week, I gave them the medals for there, so they went to the distributor for the tiles, so they can match the colors with the ribbon colors. I mean, this is Vero at its height. I mean, reminds me of the centennial celebration. It's all the families that contribute that make it a part of who we are. It's kind of like Edgar McWilliam coming out on the island doing soil boring. Other questions?
You're doing a great job, Tony.
This is
your whole team.
this is the community. It's not me. The request I have of you is simply this. I don't know if it's appropriate, and John or John can tell me, but if you would consider a resolution of support or a sentiment of the council, it would be appreciated. So as we move ahead, we know that as we reach out to the community, we can say that for this council that we have your blessing. So I don't know if
We
that's
should
up to
be able
y'all.
to do that, right?
I would sure support that.
Yeah?
No doubt, Colonel. You'll get it.
So,
Fantastic.
we'll entertain a resolution. Chair will entertain a resolution.
Yeah.
Well, if no one else wants to do it, here we go.
You do it.
I'd like to make a resolution that the City Council of Vero Beach supports fully the program to dedicated World War II monument at Memorial Island.
Second? Is that a?
Do we need,
we
take
need-
a roll, can we take a roll call for this?
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Udance?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Catuno?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And my departing note, if you remember in the front of City Hall, and as you come in the door, there's a display case there for Bill Keegan. I'll share with Sherry and Tammy, a video has just been completed on Bill Keegan and the part that he played in the liberation of the concentration camp that's there. And once I have the final approval from the media company, it is incredible. And this is a part of what you all are making happen. And again, thank you so much for your support of the tribute, and thank you so much for helping the veterans of Indian River County. It's awesome. Thanks.
Our privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, the second item for new business, Councilmember Carroll, this is your item, so would you like to introduce it, please?
Yes. Contractor issues within city limits, discuss the permitting process through planning and zoning as it applies to residential development additions, renovations, fencing, paving, drainage, and off-site impacts. Address timelines, potential delays, silt fencing, portable toilets, and parking issues. So that was written by an engineer. So I'm going to break it down a little bit this time. So we'll take it in two steps. What I'm looking for and the questions that I'm getting is, what is the current procedure for city staff's review of permits for erection of fencing, and what's the typical time frame? And that was something that came up, actually, triggered it again when I was sitting in a code enforcement meeting in January. What's the current procedure for review of single-family residential structures, both renovation and new construction, and what is the typical time frame? So the issue that came up before code enforcement was the inability to get timely review and approval of fencing permits, and then when the fence was erected in the wrong location, to get it re-permitted. And, ultimately, this board, this council was required to, amend the fines. And we both, I guess, last meeting, or the meeting before last, we actually zeroed them out because of the issues with the permitting process. So I was wondering if Mr. Jeffries could just give us, a summary of how that fencing permit process works from the city standpoint. I mean, obviously, we have nothing to do with the county, but.
Yeah, as Jason's coming up, the city has some review of each of those, and then the county, who is our agent for building permits, actually does the building permit. But Jason can walk you through what the city has to do to make sure they're constructed in the right location. We don't do the surveying for it to make sure that happens, though.
Right.
So generally, the process for a single-family residential, let's say it's new construction, that is a minor site plan at the city. They are submitted first to planning and development for their review. A site plan for, let's say if it's an infill, or either an infill development or a redevelopment of an existing house, it does require a site plan where it shows the location of the house, the stormwater is one of the key aspects of it. Typically, single-family homes are reviewed by planning and public works and engineering, and we typically have those reviews are done in about a month. Once it has site plan approval from the city, then they come over to the building department. As Monty mentioned, they are contracted by the city to serve as our building department, and then the building permits then they do their review for the construction documents for the actual structure.
But Jason, those,
And they don't start their review or they cannot issue a building permit until there is a signed site plan approval from the Planning and Development Department.
But they can submit their building plans to the building department for concurrent review, is that correct?
Yeah, they can do concurrent review.
So that cuts down some of the time. If they submit them at the same time, the building department can start on the review of the plans while city planning and engineering are doing the review of the.
Some people do that. It is at their risk, because if something gets changed during the site plan review process, then it could change their, it very rarely happens, but it could theoretically change their building plans.
Right.
And then a fence permit, let's say a fence, shed, smaller pools, those type of structures, those are all what we call code compliance permits. Those are usually reviewed either over the counter, like a fence, if there's nothing unusual with the location of it. It's a 6-foot fence along the property line. There's no easement issues. Those can be issued what we call over the counter. They just come right up to our office and we issue them that day. And then they take it over, get their building permit from the building department, or it takes up to maybe 5 days review, because especially if they're doing pavers and type of impervious surface, those type of code compliance permits do need to go over to the engineering department for their review to make sure there's no stormwater retention issues.
Okay.
But a fence is typically over the counter one
That's
day.
over the counter. A shed could even be over the counter, a small 10-by-10 shed.
Paving and drainage also?
I'm sorry, what?
Paving also? I mean,
Paving, no, because paving includes impervious surface. You need to make sure that the stormwater requirements of the city are being met.
So that would go over to engineering then?
I'm sorry, what?
That would go over to engineering?
That would, yes, our protocol or our procedure in planning is then to route those over to the engineering department for the city engineer to review and approve. And if there's any easement issues, those have to go through the city surveyor.
So was the delay attributed to the city or the county in terms of,
Which one?
the one about the fence that came up in the,
The fences, they got a very timely permit. They constructed their fence in the wrong location, came back, had a survey, and their survey was incorrect. And we even had the public works director, myself, and the city surveyor out there in person and recognized that the survey that they came back with to submit was incorrect, was using wrong reference. I'm not the survey, but this is what our fine surveyor at the city was pointing out, that their surveyor used wrong surveying reference points and was showing the fence in the wrong location.
Wow.
So, I mean.
Just a
people
bad
say-
project.
Well, I think that from the staff standpoint, there was no ill intent from the property owner to build the fence in the wrong location, and that's why we had recommended mitigation of those fees.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. It just
Yeah.
was something else that triggered, the process so that we could address the process.
No, we worked with the application, or we worked with the applicant to get it corrected. It just took some time for them to go get the survey corrected. That was some of the time delay. We can't issue it based on a wrong, a bad survey.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they mentioned the survey fiasco to us, but, so I'm glad we got it straightened out.
And the fence is now in the right location.
Most of that was out of the residents' control because of the fencing company, the survey, so, they did everything that they could.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why our recommendation at the end, they corrected the situation, but I just want to be clear that on the staff side,
Yeah.
there was nothing the city was holding up.
so if I understand you correctly, Jason, you have two benchmarks. One is if it's a minor issue or a minor request, you do it the same day or the day after. And then if it's a more complex thing requiring engineering, then it's 30 to 60 days. Is that what you're saying?
No. No. Under the code, there's a minimum threshold you have to meet for it to be a site plan review, which is usually new construction. And those require, at a minimum, what's called a minor site plan is administrative, meaning it doesn't have to go to the planning board for its review. Those reviews, like single-family homes, small commercial projects, those are reviewed internally just as an administrative review. Those, what we call site plans, they just automatically, by the context of their review, need They're reviewed by planning, they're reviewed by engineering, and also and since Rob's here, the water department also gets to see them.
That's about 30 days.
And that takes about 30 days for a single-family house, is usually our review.
You mean the city's review, both
With the site plan review.
departments?
And what are called code compliance permits, which are your minor modifications to sites like fences, sheds, pools, smaller accessory structures. Those all just require by our code to be a code compliance permit. The smaller ones where really the issue is just to make sure that they're meeting our zoning code. Those are the ones we issue over the counter. Even if it's a code compliance review, let's say pool, pavers, because of the impervious surface, it requires an engineering review. Those go over for the city engineer to review and approve, and those take typically 5 days.
So do we benchmark the process, keep track of how long it takes to do these things? And
Yes.
evaluate? Do you?
Yes.
Do you have any of the data with you, the statistics and how we've done?
Well, I pulled I do have the single-family homes. They have been, for the most part, taking 1 or 2 months. There were a few here in the last few months that took 3 months. That's only because we had you had 2 hurricanes and we had the holidays in there. There were some delays in our reviews because engineering staff got pulled off on some other hurricane-related issues. And that happens when you have let's see, if it was even worse, you would have the planning staff pulled off on issues. So you have those issues that happen. And then we had some other projects that took a little longer. I don't know if you recall, there was a developer who wanted to do private alleys, and we did a text amendment to allow it. It took some time to kind of get that through the review process as we're kind of fine-tuning how the city was going to, from an administrative standpoint, how to deal with that private alley issue. So there was a couple back and forth with our engineering staff. So those took longer than normal, but that's very on the outlier because we just had that engineering issue that kept holding it up.
So tell us what the rate of permits you're getting this year and in the past year as opposed to previous years.
I have not looked at that recently, but when we start into the budget process, I usually pull all those numbers and I provide it to you when we do the budget workshops. But I would say the last 2 years we've been seeing some of our highest permitting volume. It's been holding at, we do about 50 single-family homes a year. I want to say, make sure if I get the number right, 600 code compliance permits. That's where we really have, that's interesting. That's where every year when I've looked at that's where we're seeing our increase in activity. Every year, like a 5% increase in activities are code compliance permits. So it's not that we're having a lot of new construction. We've got a lot of people, I would say, investing in their sites. We have a lot more, more people putting pools in, more
Pavers.
accessory structure. Pavement's been
pavers.
popular. So those are really where we're seeing our increased volume. But like single-family homes been holding steady about 50 a year. We do about 10 to 12 site plans a year, 6 of which are major site plans, but those haven't really gone up.
In your judgment, what would be if these durations, if they extend over time, in other words, you've got more time, taking more time because you've got more of them and you're spread out with the limited number of staff that you've got to have some kind of a benchmark that says, I need more help.
Yes, and I look at that too. I mean, really what's happening right now, and I guess we might talk about more, I think when I do the planning update, but development reviews take about 70%. This is just in the planning side. I don't know how it's impacting public works per se, but in planning, 70% of our staff time is related to development review. So what happens is we keep more times put to those, it's just less time put to any type of special project. That's available. But yeah, theoretically there's a point where we won't even have time for the special projects. Now, if that helps.
Well, it's an issue that we need to face. If in fact staff time goes down to there's no headroom left over, then it means things get extended over time. And ultimately that will create an issue for our community, so.
It could, and, you know, one of the things has been going on late, I would say, over the last year or so is, you know, when it comes to that first, what we try to do when it comes to site plans, the first review is about 5 weeks, we tell them. That's kind of, if you look at the budget, the goal, the milestones that are put into the budget for the planning office, that's kind of the longest, that 4 to 5 weeks is what we're supposed to be doing. We're kind of hitting the edge of the time that we should be spending on the review time. So the first review usually takes 5 weeks for it to come back. What we try to do, I've worked with Public Works and Engineering since, you know, really the two departments are doing most of the reviews on these, all the projects is the planning and then the engineers.
Right.
What we try to do is on the second submittal, these are more with our major site, with our actual site plans, they try to expedite the second, what we try to do is expedite the second review. We take them in order, but if somebody's, you know, submitting for the second time, basically responding to comments, those jump ahead and those get pushed out, hopefully within 5 to 10 days. Especially if the comments are pretty straightforward. You know, they only had 5 or 10 engineering comments. You know, all you gotta do is check to make sure that they responded to the comments.
Right. Is that also why, one of the reasons that you're going out and asking for, you know, so that you have on-demand planning assistance from professionals in the industry that you've talked about previously?
I'm doing that more for some of these projects that we have proposed. But I did put in the planning consultant RFP aspect to assist with, I did put language in there, so just in case we do need it for development, in help within the development review process, if it was necessary.
Okay, so it would be in their scope.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Carroll, this was your item. Do you have the
Yeah, I broke it down into
have
two
your
parts.
issues been
That's-
answered? I mean, your question,
Yeah.
have Jason addressed what you wanted?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. Now we can go into part 2,
Now,
if I may.
Oh,
with part 2.
Part 2, yeah, it's a 2-part thing.
okay.
So, you know, one of the other things that I'm hearing out on the street is contractors erecting single-family homes throughout Vero Beach are creating undue hardship to neighborhoods. Of particular concern is subcontractor parking on pavement, sidewalks, preventing safe automobile and pedestrian traffic passage. In addition, the required elevated finished floor has increased the need for silt fencing to be installed and maintained during the entire construction process. Also, there's been placement of portable toilets, you know, in the right-of-way, and also dumpsters in the right-of-way. And that's a very, very, very dangerous situation. And that's ongoing. I mean, you drive through the community and you see this. So the photos that I handed out earlier are, I didn't know we had AV, so I didn't put them up. But it shows you, the first photo just shows you there's a dumpster sitting right off the edge of the road, and that's over on Live Oak Road. You know, a very dangerous situation. Obviously, the general contractor is responsible for anything that happens on these sites. And so, but we don't want anything to happen. I mean, that's the goal of, you know, I think the city is, they don't want any problems out there. So the silt fencing on this particular site, you know, is non-existent. It was there when they started, but it's no longer there and intact. So, you know, the vacant lot there is somebody that they're just going to start constructing that site. So one of the things that, you know, as a contractor that I know is, you know, you got 25-foot setbacks on all these roads. You know, a car now is less than 20 feet long. If you put a parking area in front of that and set up a dumpster and a porta potty on one side or the other, I mean, that's the way to control the sites. And I was wondering if there is, I could have done the research myself, but I didn't have time this week. If there's anything in our codes currently that address, the parking issues on sidewalks, on the edge of pavement, and the silt fencing, and also the placement of dumpsters.
So what you're looking at, what you're asking is whether or not these are code violations.
Basically, yes.
Jason?
Well, I think
Monty?
if you give us a little time to take a look at it and bring you back some information of how our current code either does or doesn't address these issues, and then we can talk about it a little more intelligently
Yeah, of
from a
course.
staff standpoint.
Great.
Yeah, it's just something that's been coming up, and,
Yep.
There's no answers, no ready answers.
Well, as Jason said, about 50 home permits a year and over 500 code compliance. So we have people investing in their properties, and, we like to see that. But if we can do something to make it safer for the surrounding neighborhoods, we'll take a look.
Great,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, old business. Item number 1. Councilmember Carroll, your item, so please introduce it.
Okay, Water Reclamation Facility, WRC, City Council approval at regular meeting, April 7th, 2020. The date of design contract with Kinley Horn, I do not know what that is. What I was looking at is this project was approved back in 2020. It's February of 2023, and, this project is, going hand in hand with the Three Corners project. So any delays, cost overruns, et cetera, is going to affect, the Three Corners project, which is the most important project to the city going forward, in my personal estimation. So I looked at the annual budget for fiscal year 2022 and noted the major goal of wastewater treatment was to focus on engineering design for the construction of the new water reclamation facility. According to the current budget, at the end of this fiscal year, $3,890,188 would have been allocated to the project design and bid. This differs from the total project cost of engineering design bid of $2,869,813 in the 5-year capital plan shown on page 63. Additionally, a review of Fund 424 for the WRF indicates that design bidding would be completed within fiscal year 2022-2023, and construction would be performed and completed in fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25. If you look at that timeline, this differs from the Three Corners project timeline, which was given by staff at our December 13th, 2022 special call City Council workshop. So from the minutes, it said the new plan would be in service in July of 2027. So I'm trying in my own mind to figure out how this implicates and affects the Three Corners project, and to actually address these other items, which all are tied in, items 2 and 3, or items 1 and 2 are tied in together.
So, Mr. Bolton put together an update on where we are on the water reclamation facility, and we delivered those to City Council yesterday afternoon. If you'd like to go over those, we can do that while we're here.
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, I did get them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, Rob Bolton, Water and Sewer Director. If you look at what I submitted to you through the city manager, it is more of a little bit of a detail of exactly what was approved for design services. So if you look at some of the attachments to it, It has the estimated expenditure of $3.856 million, which was a design and bidding service of roughly 3.5, and then other administrative and other ancillary reviews that we had included in the design services. Since the time of the original budget back in 2020, we've had COVID, we've had increases in inflationary and increases in costs of engineering services that went up 20-30%. So the budget that you saw in 2020 is going to be a lot lower than what you're seeing in 2022. This is dated February 16th, so the true design of the facility started roughly right after the approval of the engineering services in February of 2022. If you look at the last page, it has the most current timeline for the design. So the design should be complete by November of this year. At that point, it would go out to bid, and you would have roughly probably a 6-month bid window, just because the extent of the size of the project, you would want to have it on the street for at least 60 to 90 days. Then you would have requests for additional information back and forth, addendums to items that the bidding contractors have questions about. And by the time you get that all rolled and then put on a city council council meeting, you're probably looking at summer of 2024, if we are in 2023. And then you have a 3-year construction to operation. So we're still on schedule for the summer of 2027 at that point.
Does this timing schedule differ from previous schedules?
No, I think it's
No,
the same.
it's roughly the same, right?
And
Now,
Jason-
it does allow for room we may get done faster, depending on, we originally looked at a 2 to 2.5 year construction window with 6 months of startup. 2 years ago, I had it at 2 years, but with all the delays that you're seeing now, with lead times of equipment and especially electrical motor control centers and stuff like that, taking a year to just procure from the contractor, that's where we are being a little more conservative in our time frame, making sure that it ties into the Three Corners project a little bit, more conservatively than what we would have had in the past.
So the big change has been the actual
Supply chain
cost,
problems.
the
Yeah.
cost.
Well, cost and supply chain problem. I mean, supply chain is driving longer construction times on everything. I mean, we have another extension in the main canal project where they were supposed to actually start this month, and now they're not starting till April because they're not casting the concrete because of supply issues and construction. Now we're seeing a stabilization of all of that right now, and actually piping prices are stable. They're starting to come down. More bidders. If you look at what you approved on the doors, we bid that project out. It was over $400,000 a year ago, and now we got it, luckily because somebody was able to find a substitute door that met the same standards, that was readily available. Otherwise, they were talking about a year lead time on those doors alone. And these are, available in 60 days or so. So there's a little bit of creativity with contractors finding things, and it was especially with recently our generator, where we were able to do a quick design change to allow for the generator to be installed before next hurricane season at the RO plant. Otherwise, it would have been a year lead time on some of those items. And we procured the generator itself prior to and provided it to the contractor instead of having it in the bid because of the lead times on that. So some of these numbers, like I said, a 3-year construction window for that plant is very conservative. Originally, it was 2 years and a startup of 6 months. Now you're looking at, 2.5 years and a startup over a 6-month period. So within 3 years, we should be able to start decommissioning of that Three Corners plant. Or July of 2027.
Okay, but, you know, and I hear you. The question remains, though, why in the 5-year capital improvement plan, or the budget, the 5-year budget forecast, did this not be spread out over that longer period of time? Or is it just an oversight that they just don't match together?
I don't see what's not matching.
No, the original, the documents for the,
I don't understand.
I believe I have them added. So in the 5-year capital program, and for 2023 to 2027, if you look at the spreadsheets that are in here, it shows that the construction was going to be completed in fiscal year 24-25 in this document, which is different from what we're seeing in the spreadsheet that was provided of the Three Corners project.
I don't know what document you're looking at. Are you looking
This
at
one.
the 5-year, and you're looking
5-year.
at the 424 count?
Yeah, 424 count.
And probably what you're looking at is some of the money availability. So part of that was we were looking at had the funds available early for bonding purposes to get the funds. So that's following more of a cash flow analysis to have funds available to pay for construction. It wasn't really following the construction side of it. So in there, we were saying that we wanted to have the funds available October, November of this coming year, so that when we go to bid and you go to approve it, the funds are available.
Okay.
Maybe this will help.
That's more of a cash flow. That was a cash flow analysis more than the construction activity itself, to have the funds available.
So,
Look, for discussion though, when we built our Gantt chart for the Three Corners project, we used this data that Rob has supplied to you with the plant to fit into the construction schedule for Three Corners. You know, we just got the Three Corners approved in November, the referendum, and have moved forward with the progression of that. And if you plug all those things in, and as I've told folks before, a construction schedule is just that. It's gonna ebb and flow as we go through the project. But that's what our schedules are built on, is the wastewater plant being completed prior to the Three Corners project, and then demolition of the wastewater plant being done before the grand opening of the Three Corners, which would, as we've anticipated it to be in the summer of 2028.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, our job here is to make sure that we check out these schedules, review all these documents, and make sure that we're all comfortable that we're going to hit 2028 or 2027. And not another 2030. I mean, that's my point of view.
No, we're on schedule for so I'll give you an example. So when we looked at the construction window and then looked at the availability of funds to make sure that we had the funds available to pay for the improvements as they would get done, and you had the money available up front, that was where the cash flow kind of analysis came into play. And the engineers looked at multiple projects that they had and what the diurnal curve of expenditures were. And then that got shifted slightly back because we looked at, if you see in there, we're talking about an RFP and having the equipment selected and the city council awarding that, which may require some down payment or something prior to going out to bid for all of the rest of the concrete and steel work to be done. That's why I understand what you're saying. When you look at the cash flow versus the project and you're just looking at budgetary numbers and how it's falling in a budget, it looks like the project would be done roughly 6 months to almost a year prior to what we're saying the contract is going to take.
Absolutely.
And that's where I understand where your issue is, and you know, but like I said, right now, we'll work on a revised schedule, but you're kind of at the mercy of the contracting world right now, once we get to that point of when they say they can finish a project. So the earlier we get out to bid and the earlier we get out under contract, the better we'll be able to, you know, control that window for the three corners. But you're going to run into some of the same issues with constructing three corners as you are with constructing, you know, a brand-new water reclamation facility.
Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, in my own mind, figure out what's going on and make sure that we're all on the same page as a team. You know, I mean, we all committed to our time, talent, treasure to the city of Vero Beach to make sure this process works as expeditiously as possible. And, you know, that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. So let's go to item 2. Again, Councilmember Carroll, your item on the wastewater projects.
All right. As we all know, there's a number of projects that are tied into the water reclamation facility. And so we really haven't talked about that as a council that I could see in the minutes that I reviewed since we've been on here. So I just wanted to go ahead and just address those if I could. Mr. Bolton.
Again, you could read the details, but to give you the Cliff Note version of where we are with those projects, the one you're talking about is the auxiliary backup water for reclaimed water, which kind of led to the stormwater pipeline project and some of the replacement of reclaimed water with stormwater on the barrier island. And we are moving, you know, forward with that project. We have done the design for all of the pipeline on the mainland side, and also for once the crossing is taken place under the lagoon. That was designed by CHA Consulting. Then going up through Beacon Point, we did the design of that, but they helped with the environmental issues, since you're going through more or less a mosquito impoundment that has lots of wetland vegetation and everything else. And then we finish up the design going across Red Turk Drive and eventually up A1A and tying into Johns Island Water Management District piping that's there. We've have 100% plans submitted in for the mainland portion. We've submitted twice to the county. We're in for the third submittal. We met with staff at the county and the city. Part of that project requires us to get an interlocal agreement between the two of us for the use of the Gifford Boat Dock Park. John and Dylan were working on that. We were hoping to get that back to council in April sometime for approval. The Johns Island Water Management will be a third party to that agreement. They will make some contributions for future improvements to that park once we complete the crossing. The CHA is 100% done with the subaqueous crossing design. It's been in for permitting. They have done they've received the request for additional information back from DEP and Army Corps, and they are preparing the response back to them. There wasn't anything that was a red flag flying up. It was just a little bit more explanation and details on some of the items within the boundaries and some other requests for legal documentation on like the park and that, which will fall in with that agreement.
Okay.
And we are about 80% plans complete for the rest of that A1A. It's the last tie-in part. Where we're doing the tie-ins, we're doing some additional in-house surveying, working with Johns Island Water Management to locate their lines and figure out the best type of operational control valves for being able to open and close valves at different times of the day to fill ponds and to pressurize their system at night. So that should be done. We're hoping everything should be complete by April. We'll go out to bid, hopefully have a bid opening in July, mid-July, or late July, with the award by council, second meeting in August is what I'm shooting for. And then that's about a 9-month construction window. We checked on availability of pipe. Pipe was out a year now. We can get that pipe within 6 weeks, so we're back kind of into a good supply chain system with that piping project. And hopefully that should be online by late June of 2024, no later than September of 2024 is what we're hoping for. And so that will be complete. So that is really that main support project for the water reclamation facility. So that'll be done, finishing up right about the time that the water reclamation facility will be starting construction.
Okay,
Okay?
Thank you.
perfect.
Fantastic.
Okay. Items 3 and 4 are kind of related, so can we just combine those two, you think?
I think we can do that.
Okay, so, Councilmember Carroll, you've got the floor again.
All right, Three Corners project, update on soliciting and retaining a project manager to act as a lead city representative in all things related to Three Corners development. We're looking for the advertising, job description, and responsibility matrix, and the drop-dead retention date.
What is a drop-dead retention date?
That means you gotta hire them by that time.
I see, thank you.
It's
not even an engineering
It's engineer talk. So you have a memo in front of you from Jason Jeffries that he put together, you got last night. We have received half a dozen or so applications. We've had some interest from some others that haven't done an application yet, but we're scheduling some interviews. Gabrielle Manis, our HR director, is doing that this week. We'll have those folks coming here to talk to us. What we're hearing is all over the board. We've got some senior folks that have kind of been at the end of their careers that don't want to work full-time, so I'm going to talk to some of them to see if that might be a possibility to get somebody in that's got some really good experience, or we're going to be looking at more youthful that would be ready for a full-time employee. So hopefully we'll have those decisions made soon and have somebody on by that June 1st drop-dead date.
Fantastic.
Are we also looking at firms to do it?
I'm going to talk to 2 folks that are associated with engineering, one with an architecture firm and one with a construction firm.
Okay.
Jason, do you have anything to add? Since you're here.
Nothing really. Just if you got any questions, I think I also included in the memo the timing of because there's the third prong of this that we're working on is also updating the comp plan, which is the other piece. So you got the update, and I think that's being tied to the planning consulting services RFP that's out right now. And once we got them under contract, then we'll proceed with the analysis that's necessary to do the comprehensive plan amendments.
Okay.
And you also ask about the request for proposal development. We are working on the task order right now with the financial management group. We'll be submitting that to the council, I believe, the second meeting in March to coincide with the approval of the budget amendment to support that expenditure.
Okay, great.
So the RFP only goes for like 2 or 3 months? Is that, it said something like May to August? Did I read that incorrectly?
Yeah, that's a tentative schedule. One of the things, and it's very tentative, I want to point that out, it's because one of the things once we get the financial consultants, their work order issued, and working on this project, one of the final decisions we're going to have to make with them is if we're going to do the RFP process or if we're going to do that intent to negotiate process, and that might change some of the timing and how the specific timing of how that. Right now, the timing is based more on an RFP. Intent to negotiate might change that review process a little different.
Gotcha.
You have a date for the RFP, May 20.
Our goal is to get it out.
Yeah.
In May.
In May.
Originally it was April 30th.
Yeah, it was.
So we're moving it out a week or two?
Yeah, we'll say about a week or two.
You can say if it's gonna be moved out a week or two.
It's always taking a little longer to get the financial consultant, getting them engaged and,
Because we can't pay them until we do a budget amendment.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jason.
Fantastic.
He has a number 5.
That's,
Oh,
yes,
the minutes.
the minutes. Thank you.
All right.
Correction of 12/6/2022 meeting minutes. Councilmember Carroll.
In my review of the December 6, 2022 meeting minutes, I noted item 2, restructuring of city commissions / board, city council, on page 25. It reads, Vice Mayor Moore made a motion to suspend for 6 months the Recreation Commission, Tree and Beautification Commission, and the Economic Development Zone Advisory Committee. Mrs. Zudan seconded the motion, and it passed unanimously. Well, it didn't pass unanimously because we went immediately to public comment. Public comment followed, and then on page 26, the page behind it, it says the motion passed 3-2 with Mr. Neville and Mr. Carroll voting no, which is actually the way it worked out. So I think we need to strike on page 25 everything after Ms. Sudan seconded the motion. So we'd be striking and it passed unanimously because that's not the way it worked.
Well, that makes sense, because it didn't pass unanimously.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay.
Sounds like a winner.
I will make those changes.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
We don't need a motion to change meetings, do we?
Comfortable if you
It
did.
was approved already.
So we need to have to, we need to have a motion, don't we? If we have to change
Yes.
the minutes? Okay. So, we'll entertain a motion to move.
Motion to modify December 6th city council minutes to reflect that the vote on suspending the committees did not pass unanimously. Is that good?
Well, that's close. The vote was 3-2.
And the vote was 3-2.
There you go.
Okay.
Why don't we just, a motion to strike the paragraph that indicates?
We could just strike the one that said 5-0, and
Motion to strike that,
yes,
yes.
that's the simplest way.
That's, okay, motion to strike.
Tammy, could you read a resolution back, please?
Well, the motion was basically to strike the one that said unanimously 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
I don't
Yes.
know if it was seconded or not.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes?
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Udans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Cotugno?
Yes. Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, this is where we're going to move up item 9A. So Jason, if you want to give your community planning projects update?
Really don't have much of a presentation other than what you have in your packet is a memo for me giving you an update on the projects. This is kind of the follow-up to the, what I did, oh, here it is. Follow-up to the workshop you held on January 26th. And basically the outcome, just kind of summarize, and this is kind of how I'm proceeding unless you have some changes to it, is of course the first priority is the Three Corners implementation. We already talked about that, about the, as staff are proceeding with the amendments to the comprehensive plan. That's really our primary focus in this fiscal year. There will be some work on the land development code, but those really wouldn't be approved until next fiscal year. The second priority is the commercial zoning district updates. I'm already working with the Planning and Zoning Board on those, and I plan on at their March 16th meeting bringing to them a draft of some changes. And then the third priority is the neighborhood protection. There is some initial research. We'll probably be bringing back at their March 16th meeting some additional research that we've been doing in-house. But one of the things I want to do is use some of the money that was budgeted in the planning department, and we'll probably, using the consultants that were going out to RFP, that they will assist with doing some neighborhood meetings, just to make sure that we get all the neighborhood input that's proper to this type of planning project. I think that's important to this. And then finally, the downtown master plan. Working on, again, as part of the planning consultant, we'd get the expert retail economist to do the urban retail market study for downtown. We also will look at reviewing the existing downtown plans. And then really out of those two kind of what call them very background analysis, then we'll make some determinations and really with discussions with the plan, would follow up with you as city council and the planning board about any future. What I heard at the workshop was, I think, a desire to do a complete master plan for, let's say, our urban core. We need to kind of figure out the boundaries of that. I'll come back to you with some recommendations on that, and probably bounce it also off to get the input of the planning and zoning board. And then we'll, and then I do expect that to kind of, what we had originally planned as the old Dixie study area will be folded into that master plan. It will become the, I call it, beyond downtown, it's really the core of Vero Beach, reviewing it. So it's probably going to include several districts, and we'll have to do a little more work to kind of figure out the exact boundary of that, study boundary of that master plan.
Great.
But,
So we do-
what I'm suggesting is first kind of let's do, I think what would be good information is kind of review the existing, do a more complete analysis of all the existing plans, what they recommended, and then also this retail market study will provide really good information about how we define those boundaries for downtown.
So have we had any discussions with the retail consultant yet, or?
Well, not at this point, because we're under a cone of silence of
Okay, then
responding
we're
to
under a
RFP.
cone of silence.
So,
All right, that's fine.
but I'm hoping, well, we'll have a good consultant that will respond to that, and then we will, once that those are submitted, they're due this week, and then I'll be discussing with whoever submits, and then I'll be coming back with a recommendation to you as city council.
Now, included in your downtown master plan, although lines may be differentiating between yourself and Public Works, is the traffic study will be part of this, or are included or rolled into?
When you say traffic study,
The one that is the infamous Twin Piers.
that is not part of this. We'll be bringing that to you at a upcoming meeting, probably the next one.
Okay, great.
We have gotten the scope of services from the consultant, and that will be for your action to move forward with that lane elimination request.
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
Questions?
thanks for moving it up, and,
Our pleasure.
okay.
Okay, so we have city clerk matters.
Okay, happy to present our annual commission and board reports. We do have several of our chair here that would like to just briefly go over their reports. We'll start with Eric Price with the Code Enforcement Board.
Funny, I didn't know I was coming up here and speak.
Don't be nervous.
My wife's much better at this than I am. So, name's Eric Price. I'm the chairman of the Code Enforcement for the city of Vero Beach. And first, I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak and present our annual report. I'd like to thank our fellow code enforcement members for their dedication and their service as well. We have a great board. And of course, thank our city clerk and code enforcement officers and our police department. I believe you all have a copy of the annual report.
Yes, we do.
It's kind of boring. I mean, it's just what we do, but it's hopefully self-explanatory, but I didn't really have anything else prepared other than, here it is. So, does anybody have any questions?
How can we better help you in your position as chairman of the Code Enforcement Board?
I think these facilities are really nice.
Well, cross that off your list.
They'll get used to it.
Other than that, no, I think we're doing really well as far as, I do, there are some situations that we have to send to you guys, and I appreciate you taking the time to address them, only because how, our limitations of how we can respond to certain anomalies. But we try to respect all our citizens, give them utmost respect, and let them present whatever they want to say, and listen to them as much as we can. So otherwise, I don't know. I really don't have any complaints. I mean, I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy the board that I work with, and especially the city staff, and I'm just glad to do it.
While we're on this topic, I've had on my mind for some time, we've talked about it before, Monty, and that is the notion of proactive code enforcement as opposed to reactive, meaning complaints. And there are some areas in our community that would deserve to have some proactive work. And I'm wondering if that's a concept that seems favorable to the council. And I'm thinking, for example, there are areas in downtown that I think would deserve to have some examination.
I agree. Can you expand that?
Yeah, what do you mean by
And proactive?
Well, there are locations in our community that where stucco is falling off the walls. You've got dead shrubbery that's required by site plan. So there's there's a parking lot in one instance that's got a fence in front of it that faces on to 20th Street. When that was built, I'm guessing that was probably 35 years ago, shrubbery was placed. Now what we have are volunteered palm trees growing there instead. That kind of thing.
I noticed when
Council-
driving through the city.
Let me jump in here, Chairman Price. Councilmember Neville, I don't know if this is the appropriate setting to discuss kind of a policy consideration or direction. And I understand that you're concerned and you've expressed it to us. It might be more appropriate at another meeting when we can focus on code enforcement needs and directions, and I can give you an update on what it is that code enforcement is pursuing, proactive as well as reactive. But I think having the code enforcement board does not go out and enforce it. So they're here to hear the cases.
This was a target of opportunity.
This was an opportunity, and I think you brought it up, and it's something that you should consider at an appropriate meeting that we can schedule. I think that's probably the best.
Look forward to that.
Would
Yes,
it be-
sir.
we
Glad to
need-
do it.
We need to have it at a council meeting or at a workshop?
That's up to the pleasure of the council. Workshop may not be a bad idea at all, but it's something I think does need to be discussed, because we are addressing, the code enforcement branch is addressing a lot of the issues and problems, as we'll be glad to discuss.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And I'm willing to attend too. Or- All right,
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I truly appreciate it.
Hey, Mr. Bob Jones, Finance Commission Board Chairman.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the annual report. The Finance Commission only met 2 times last year. That's 2 fewer times than we should have met. Probably a combination of COVID hangover, and I think in December we thought we wouldn't have access to the chambers. We have committed to meeting 4 times this year, and the central focus, the thing we always look on, and we try to time the meeting for when Cindy has results available to us, so it may not be exactly the same month that other commissions meet in. And we focus on the major variances. Cindy usually is able to explain them quite competently. And we also occasionally pick out several major dollar projects like Three Corners and things like that and ask to be talked through. The start of the annual report basically, presents the charter. In the charter, it says the Finance Commission can, at its pleasure, pick some projects to work on. We've been reluctant to do that. We think it works best if supplemental projects, in addition to the more purely green eye shade stuff that we do with Cindy, should actually come from a council member or the council itself. And we'd welcome you to point us to projects where you would like the Finance Commission to supplement their other duties. We have met already once. It was probably not the optimal time, but it got scheduled, and we did meet and welcomed a new member. I understand we now have a second new member, Mark Adelson and Tim Dean. And so, and we will meet next in May, August, and November. Any questions?
None from the chair?
None
No.
from-
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate all your hard work.
Hey, Mr. Keith Druitt, he's the Vice Chairman of the Marine Commission.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to give you an update. Mr. Troutman, Chairman, I believe, is leaving town.
Leaving the state, actually.
So I'm acting for him today, and that will mean Mr. Turner will have to conduct a new election at the next meeting for a new chairman. We're scheduled to hold 4 meetings a year, and we did indeed have 4 meetings in 2022. We tracked a number of major issues and projects in the city. Firstly, Three Corners, which, as you know, has a maritime component potentially. There are docks planned on the lagoon, so we've been watching that. High level at this stage, but we get periodic updates from Jason on that. Vessel enforcement has been a major topic for a number of years. Concerns are overboard discharge of basically toilet sewage, which is illegal, and trying to encourage patrol enforcement to mitigate that issue requires for the vessel to be boarded and a dye flushed down the marine toilet. And that can only be done by a sworn officer. So that's a limiting factor. And we need a working boat, which we now have. We did not have a working boat for some time. So we'll continue to work with that, particularly with Captain Monaco, who periodically comes and gives us a report. There is a lot of public comment, as you probably know, about a lack of visible patrol enforcement. There are 3 agencies involved that potentially could patrol. Don't count the Coast Guard. They're rather busy with immigrants and drug smuggling, so we don't see them up here very often. They're in the inlets. Fish and Wildlife, the county and the city can all patrol. And the good news is we have 3 agencies that can patrol. The bad news is we have 3 agencies that can patrol because there's sometimes a little bit of this going on, pointing fingers in different directions. But generally the public, I think, is not satisfied with the amount of visible enforcement. For example, on Thursday, there were 21 vessels anchored off Riverside. That's the highest I've seen in the 5 or 6 years that I've been tracking this. Those are transient vessels. Have they secured their holding tank against overboard discharge? We don't know. I suspect in many cases not. So that is a concern. We've also been tracking derelict and at-risk vessels. I think we've spoken before to council. We have 3 vessels now which are submerged off the city marina. That's an issue because instead of merely towing a floating vessel, now you've got a marine salvage operation. The vessel's got to be dewatered. The fluids from the engine and transmission have to be removed. There's a process that goes through that. So a lot of the emphasis for Fish and Wildlife in the past couple of years when it comes to rulemaking has been trying to intercede in the process of ticketing and dealing with a vessel before it sinks. Because you've gone from like a $2,000 tow to a $10,000 to $12,000 marine salvage event. And they finally realized that's not maybe the best way to run the railroad. And they're trying now to encourage the agencies to intercede earlier. So we'll be tracking that. And also, we've regularly reviewed the plans for the South Complex restoration, had some input to Sean and the other city officials on that, and that's going well, and we'll continue to monitor that South Complex plan as it develops. Hopefully it'll gather speed soon. That's what we've been doing, and we'll continue on the same track unless we hear from council who'd like us to do something differently. Any questions, Linda?
Yeah, I have a question. Now that we do have a functioning boat, are we any further along in having, like, perhaps more water patrols for code enforcement infringements and things of that nature? Is it a manpower issue?
Well, we're getting those patrols out there. Chief has had some turnover, so it's been some manpower issues to getting them out, but I believe he's close to being full again with his guys he has in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope to pick that up soon. And as we've talked this week, we're going to get with those agencies and see if we can't get a better flow to the process so we can do just what Mr. Druitt has said, to get these things out when it's a tow instead of a salvage operation.
And the submerged vessels, I know you've been working on this for so long.
I
but
thought, as you know, the county processes submerged vessels for all the jurisdictions. The reason for that is there's a benefit in terms of engaging contractors. If you can put 4 or 5 vessels together, because mobilization costs are a big issue. You've got to bring maybe a couple of barges, a couple of tow vessels up maybe from Stewart or down from Melbourne. So there's a big advantage in bundling those into packages of 4 or 5 vessels, which they're doing. 2 of the submerged vessels, I think, have been approved for removal. 1 is being processed. I must say, in all fairness, that piece of the operation, actually removing the vessels, once approved by Fish and Wildlife, I think is one of the smoother running parts of they're actually doing a pretty good job.
So
Eric
we're
Charis
getting
runs
somewhere.
this. Melissa is assigned to this as well. She's the natural resources officer. And they're actually doing a pretty good job. The problem is getting them to the point where Fish and Wildlife approves them. The reason Fish and Wildlife has to approve them is they have the money. They're funded each year by the legislature for a couple of $1 million, so they control that funding. So they approve the removal. The county carries out the removal operation, then gets refunded from Fish and Wildlife. So they're the control point, if you like, in the process.
Well, I think you're doing a great job staying diligent and just really, really addressing this issue that has been going on for
It's been going on for a long
a
time.
while.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith. Well done.
Okay, Mr. Jeb Bittner, Planning and Zoning Board Chairman.
Good afternoon. Spoke with Jason in the hall. I wasn't sure I was going to speak today or not. So you've received the memo. I think at this point to read through all the progress of the last year would be redundant. So I'll open it up to your questions and then just one closing comment if you have anything on last year's agenda or what's on this upcoming year's list of to-dos.
No, I think we're very in tune, council. I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least from my standpoint of what planning and zoning is doing right now, moving forward with some language changes in the code that make it easier to read and easier to interpret, less likely to be misinterpreted. I think that's very positive stuff. and it's going to help out code enforcement eventually, so we don't have these issues. So I appreciate your diligence on that and
So, Jeff,
the good work on that.
so Jeff, as you look at what's on your plate for the coming year, what do you see as you know, your foremost objective goal regarding the overview, review of, you know, our code and so on and so forth? What do you think is the thing that you think needs to be addressed the most from planning and zoning's point of view? Because you see it all, and you've had some interesting cases over, you know, you've had everything. Huh? Well, it's a good question to ask from somebody, you know, who's actually out reviewing these things, has had one or two controversial type projects show up on your doorstep, so.
There were some self-inflicted wounds, so I think getting the matrix completed on zoning uses will be helpful to lay people in the community, understanding what's allowed, what's not allowed. I think looking at where some uses that were controversial in the last 2 or 3 months, and making sure that those uses that may not be compatible to Main Street are moved to a place that's not Main Street. I'd like to tell all those people that use those storage places that after a year, they'll decide to get rid of the stuff anyway, so you really don't need them, but you know, figure that out for yourself. You know, I think Three Corners is obviously going to be a huge time commitment for Jason and his staff. I think the takeaway that I'd give you, watching what is on Jason and his staff, which is very small, I had the opportunity during a day job to work with several jurisdictions in Florida and other states. And with the amount of work that's coming through Jason's office, staffs of other municipalities are much larger, or they have been subcontracted out to engineering firms that have far more resources. So I really see Jason's department as being a 5-pound bucket, and there's 10 pounds coming his way on a daily basis. So I don't know what the council can do. I know there's some things being discussed with outsourcing and additional human resources, but that's where I'd say you all could have some assist to bring the resources back to reviewing plans. I mean, it's from the mundane to Three Corners. So.
Challenging year coming up.
Yeah.
Very challenging year. So that's it. If there's any other questions.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate your help.
Service, thank you.
Mrs. Jane Burton, Utilities Commission Chairman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. I am glad to be here to answer questions from the annual report that you were presented with back in December the 30th. That was dated December the 30th. We met 7 times, and we had 2 special meetings during last year. Unfortunately, this year, we have not been able to meet, so we look forward, we hope to March. Nobody's told me yet, so I'll just wait to hear. And I would like to thank the staff, especially the city clerk, the attorney's office, and finance for all the assistance they gave us during the year when we had questions that we needed assistance with. And we have appreciated that, and I would like to thank my committee because they came and we worked, and we hope we did, gave you some good advice. And I'll answer any questions.
Well, going forward, what do you think your main focus is going to be in
Of this coming year?
2023, 24, yeah?
I'm sure we'll be spending some time with the new wastewater construction. I'm sure that'll be there. I'm sure stormwater is something that's going to be coming before us in probably several different, from several different aspects. And we're ready to take that and do anything else you have that you wish for us to help you with. We'll be glad to help.
Thank you so
And
much.
study it and review it. And
Thank you, Jane. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
thank you. Nice day.
Okay, and Mr. John Michael Matthews is the chair of the Veterans Memorial Island Committee.
Well, I'm proud to serve on the Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary Committee, where we honor those that died in the service of our country. Very important. We had 10 meetings this year, and Our job is to study and review documents that are for monuments or memorials that they want to put out on the island. A good example is the World War I monument, which I think turned out great, the doughboy and the soldier in full uniform, appropriate for the time and period, and riflet. And also Alec McWilliams was a doughboy, so he's kind of got the nickname now, Alex, the World War I doughboy. Also coming before you pretty soon is a monument for the World War II merchant marines, not all merchant marines, but those that served during World War II. Probably the biggest one that we've been working on, you've already heard about, and with Colonel Young, and it is going to be a great project. It's just going to be fantastic, and certainly for us to honor those, the greatest generation deserves our respect and admiration, and you can be sure it's going to be done right because Colonel Young is leading the charge on that. We had 5 memorial services of families whose veteran passed away, and they had memorial services on the honor to honor their service. We voted to replace one marker that was for James Loudermilk, who was killed December 27th, 1967, and it was marked as December 12th somehow, so we corrected that. And that family has another Marine out on the island that was killed on Iwo Jima. So that family has 2, Loudermilk has 2 cenotaphs on the island, and there's another Loudermilk in town that's a Marine that I've seen from time to time. We had, besides memorial services, it is appropriate to have retirement ceremonies or re-enlistment ceremonies. We had one young lady promoted from major to lieutenant colonel on the island there, and that was a pretty big deal for her and for the island. George Voiles' family has been around for quite a while, re-enlisted. He had been in 16 years up to that point, re-enlisted for 4 years, so that puts him to 20, so he gets benefits and so forth, so that was a big deal for that family. We had no Veterans Day ceremony because instead we had a hurricane. I went out there and water was ankle deep in a big part of the island, and basically it's like out to sea when the water washes over. And then because of the bridge, we won't have Memorial Day ceremony on the island. It will be at the I guess it's kind of great, at the Grand Pavilion just north of Memorial Island. And there's thousands of people that go out there for Veterans Day and Memorial Day, as you all know, and some of these things, I know most of you attend our meetings anyway, so I'm kind of repeating things that you already know, but another thing to consider is the 4th of July event, which is a huge event, but it's not really part of Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary, except that's where the mortar tubes are that fired the fireworks. And I guess the city, and it's not part of our area, but somebody's going to have to figure out where to fire the fireworks from on the 4th of July. So we won't be on the island for, 6 months or so, and that's kind of a moving target, as I heard earlier, with supplies and other problems, supply lines and material. Let's see a couple of the last things. We had the wreaths across America on the island, and they put a wreath at every veteran's grave in Indian River County. And of course, it looks beautiful out on the island to have the wreaths there. And then the Gold Star Mothers and Victims' Rights Coalitions also have their services there. So this time next year, we'll have a beautiful new bridge out on the island, we're hoping. So thank you, and if there's anything I can...
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Well, I read we're relocating Alex McWilliams' monument, bringing it, is that right? Bringing it in a little bit
Well,
closer to
Annette was out there today, and what's happened is, I forgot what they're called, the split leaf, those plants kind of grow over it. And
Yeah.
She hates us when we're asking her if we can cut them back, but the staff was there and cut it back, so it's a little bit more easier to see. But the plaque itself has worn away, and the family, I believe, has offered to replace the plaques. So
But it's going to stay in its current place?
Well, I think the plan right now, or what we were going to suggest, of course, the city, you all make the decision, but the plan would be to move it forward a little bit because all that vegetation has grown around it.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, well, thank you. If there's anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And that concludes our reports. The next item that I had was an
Can I
appointment.
just say that all of our chairmen and all the members who participate in these commissions, how much we appreciate what they do, the time that they take, the effort that they put forward for every one of their meetings. It's just an exceptional community effort by a whole lot of people, and I think I speak for all of us. We're just truly grateful for all the things they do for us. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, the only other item that I had was an appointment to the MPO Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Terry Goff, who was a former mayor, has served on that committee for the last 25 years, and he is resigning for health reasons. We have recently received an application from Mr. Roy Howe Lambert Jr., who is interested in serving on the committee, and I have provided you with a copy of his application.
Well, I liked his application, and I would move to approve his appointment.
I would second that.
Is he here?
Don't think so.
I didn't know if he was.
So we should, if we
Public
have-
comment?
should we do a roll call for this?
Yes, sir. Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Udance?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Cotugno?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a break?
It's up to you.
No.
I'm good.
Okay. Fine. Everybody good? Okay, great. Just double checking. Okay, so city manager matters, we're gonna go to, item number B.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the management agreement for Riverside Tennis Complex with USTA of Florida. This has been a project that we've had in the works since the fall of 2021, and we've had discussions since that time. We now have a license agreement in front of City Council for your action, which would give USTA of Florida a 3-year license to manage the tennis facility at Riverside Park. It'll amount to a cost savings to the city of $55,000 annually. We will have improved services and programming offered by USTA of Florida with their professional staff, and facility improvements that they will make. They will be resurfacing some tennis courts as the first thing that they do. And again, as I stressed, it's a short-term commitment of only 3 years, so that we're not tied into a long-term deal until we find out how we each get along together. So with that, if anyone has any questions, or if Jim or if USTA of Florida, if you have questions of the staff or USTA of Florida, they're here as well. And but the staff is recommending that the city council do enter into this license agreement with them.
Yeah, I have a question. I've noticed that we're getting compensated by $500 a month by the tennis, our USTA, and their budget is pretty small. We've got a $30 million budget, so the $500 a month, not that it's not important, couldn't be used, but it seems to me that $500 could be much more better used if it just stayed with them. So I would be inclined to want to amend this agreement to make it $1 a year, just like I think we do with some large buildings over in Riverside Park.
I think the lease is stated with the $500 a month is more than fair, and I would not agree to that.
Okay. What are we going to do with that $500?
Well, maybe
It's just a general question of the staff. Got it.
Like you're gonna know right now what you're gonna do $500 for like a month right now. There's no projects that are currently in front of you right now that you would say you would put $500 a month for, so it's.
Downtown can use Christmas lights.
It's just, it's, I think ridiculous.
I think $500 is a reasonable amount.
I think it's very reasonable.
This is not a for-profit organization, so for what it's worth.
Okay, so,
So my idea stands without a second, so we'll move on. Okay.
Do you need a motion?
To,
What do we want to hear from?
no, we're gonna take, we're gonna take a public comment first.
Yes.
Well, there hasn't been a second to the, my
Yeah.
suggestion, so.
I think Council Member Neville's motion has failed for a lack of a second.
Correct.
So we will table that, and we will go to public comment. And we are open to public comment regarding this contract. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. You can, if you are uncomfortable stating your street address, that's understandable. Just state whether you live in the city or in the county. Other than that, floor is open. Who wants to make public comment? Please, don't have to raise your hand. Just step up to the podium.
I've lived in Vero for 40 years. I just recently
You,
moved.
please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's my, you should
Nancy
state your
Lee
name.
Wydra. I live at 945 26th Street. For the last year, I've lived in the county for 40 years before that, and I moved out of the county because Summer Place has become overrun with VRBOs. And I know that's a revenue stream for the county and the city. What I don't understand is that since I've moved in only a year, 2 houses on my block have become VRBOs. One, the owner moved out, rented an
Ma'am,
apartment.
are you talking about, we're talking about the USTA, the the Tennis Association. If you wanted to have
I'm
this
sorry, I thought
conversation,
that-
it should have been in the beginning when we opened it up. I don't know if you were here.
It was the end. I'm very sorry.
Okay.
I will come back.
Okay, thank you. So do you have any comment on the USTA agreement with the city?
My name is Eileen Martin. I live at 41.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
My name is Eileen Martin. I live at 4111 Indian River Drive. I've been a member of the tennis club for, well, since my son was 3 years old and he's 45. And I play there twice a week, and I think they're doing an excellent job the way they are. I don't understand why we need an organization in there. I'm sure the rates are going to go up, and I think that Gabby is doing a fantastic job. Have any of you seen how crowded it is up there? Every court was taken. We can't get people in the summer, so USTA is not going to get anyone in the summer unless they send boats or cars up to Connecticut to bring them down. I don't understand what's going on. I think the city can handle it. This is just my opinion. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, the chair will entertain a motion.
One more.
One more.
Oh, sorry, didn't,
Pardon me?
I said, apologize, go ahead.
My name is Tom Fish, and I live at 535 Day Palm Road. And we moved from Minnesota to Vero Beach in 1986, and then in 1989 we moved across the street from Riverside Park on Mockingbird and Honeysuckle. Was a very convenient place to live. Besides the beautiful park there, the tennis courts are right across the street, and I played tennis with my children basically pretty much every day there, and was involved with the program at Riverside. And you know, back then there was a sign up there that said it was the best facility in the country in 1979, and I don't think much has happened since then as far as improving the facility. It's, you know, I'm just a concerned citizen that I love tennis, and I've been involved with tennis my whole life. I teach at Windsor, and this is my 32nd season, even though I'm just a kid. But I feel fortunate that the USGA has chosen Vero Beach to manage our facility. Not only is it going to save us a lot of money, it is going to bring in more tennis players and build more tennis players and get more children involved. And Vero Beach is a fantastic tennis community. Besides, it is a fantastic tennis community, but I'd just like to say that I'm very much in favor of the USTA running this program, and I'm grateful to Laura and the USTA for offering their services to them, and it's, to me, a can't-lose situation. And like Monty said about the 3-year thing, it's a good plan. If things don't work out for the city, then we can make an adjustment. But anyhow, it's a fantastic site, and right now it's not a fantastic site, and I think the USTA is going to go a long ways in not only making it more beautiful, but create more tennis players and more activity for everyone, not just children, for adults too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Jackson Stewart, live at 415 Great Twig Road, and I don't play tennis, so I have no dog in the fight, really. I used to when I was a kid, but like Mr. Fish just said, it'd be a nice thing to have a world-class organization like the tennis group come here to town. I can only express disappointment, though, that the ambitions seem to be downscaled compared to the Marty Fish proposal from a couple of years ago. I think 2021, maybe. Looked like a nice club that they were going to do. Hopefully USTA can do something like that at the end of the 3 years, as it would be nice to see Riverside in general evolve into more of a town forum, so to speak, for a bunch of things instead of it being $300,000 worth of grass to mow every year. And hopefully the $55,000 can delay that a little bit. But overall, it seems to be a wonderful thing to have, and it's a gift, I'd say, on a silver platter to the city, and hopefully it happens. That's all.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, or evening, maybe, by now.
Not yet.
My name is Ted Macbeth, and I've been a resident of Vero Beach for over 30 years. I also have a tennis background, and I was the tennis pro for the city of Vero Beach for 9 years, back in the 90s, in 2000, hired by the city as an employee, with a full-time employee with benefits, and I was hired to do a job to create more activity on the tennis courts there. And so I took it very seriously. I was in my 30s, and I had the benefit of a lot of tennis pros in town that helped me and developed programs. We all worked together. When I arrived there was an office, not quite what it looks like now. They've made some improvements during my time there, and it's now a more user-friendly environment. But back in the day, we had a couple of part-time staffers that were, rather elderly, and it was a challenge to go to the tennis courts and to get a court and so forth. And there was really nothing going on at the time. And so luckily I was able to, create some activity and create some children's programs, adult programs and so forth, and create a lot of activity to where I thought, and I think a lot of people agreed with me, that it was a very vibrant tennis community, tennis facility. And so kind of, it just struck me that there was a lot of potential there, and I hope that during my time there that potential was realized. Unfortunately, everything went in a different direction. There was contract negotiations, renegotiations, and so eventually, I was no longer there, and the facility returned to the way it was before. And that's been sort of the status quo. And they actually tried to privatize the facility back in the day. And Pat Callahan, the then recreation director, brought up the idea of the privatization issue to the city commission. But it was not received very well by the community. It was I think they made it a little bit more difficult for tennis pros and the tennis community in Florida to get through the red tape and so forth. And so there weren't very many bids. I think they only received one bid to privatize, to accept the responsibility. So, long story short is I concur with Tom Fish, who's a friend of mine. We've been in this area forever, and I can't say enough positive things about the USTA and the job that they do, the excellence that they have, the experience that they have. And in my opinion, this facility has really has not grown at all, and it's one of the most underutilized tennis facilities that I've seen. I mean, if you go into some of the other places around the state, Delray Beach, it's just it's a facility that has so much potential, and I'm so excited about
30 seconds to wrap this up.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
So, I'm thrilled to death that the USTA has come in, and I hope that you guys vote favorably on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Good evening. Annie Manus, citizen of Vero Beach. I'd like to thank the staff for all their hard work bringing this forward at this point in time. And just for a very brief historical perspective here, when this kind of proposal comes forward, automatically a process kicks into place. And it's transparent, it's ethical, and it always includes the public. We have special call meetings and workshops, charrettes. The advisory boards have their meetings also. They're advertised, they're noticed, and it's unfortunate that we get here and not everyone understands what it's all about. Just in response to a comment that was made here, what is this about? Well, it's cost savings. You've heard some comments here also. It improves our services, the facility is improved. It's all in the backup information. And it's a short-term commitment, so if it doesn't work out, we can look at it again. I attended all those public advertised meetings when it was going on, and yes, there were a few loud voices in opposition to this, but what I witnessed more than anything was a huge, huge response in the community, a very, very favorable one to proceed with this. And that's just very briefly how we got to this point in time. I would encourage you to please look at this favorably for our future and to approve this contract. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Lease agreement.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? So at 5:08 PM, I will close public comment.
Mr. Mayor, just to, for the record, all the programs and services currently listed will stay at the same rates and fees. Any programs that are not currently in place, fees will be proposed and have to be approved by the city council before implementation.
And any adjustment to current fees will have to be approved by the city council.
That is correct.
That's correct. So the city council retains financial control over the tennis complex. So just to make, if that wasn't clear, I think it's clear now. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the management agreement for Riverside Tennis Complex with USTA.
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Zedans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Catuno?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank USTA for working so hard with us and hanging in there with us. It's been a long time, and we've gotten some great feedback from Laura and your team, and thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
I would also like to add, sometimes government doesn't do things as well as other agencies do it, and USTA does an amazing job with tennis, and so I'm super excited to see what comes out of this. So thank you guys so much for hanging with us.
So we have an added item C.
Yeah, this is just a informational item and maybe get some direction from council. As you know, the city has properties around that we have licenses and leases with groups, not-for-profit groups. In particular, the lease that I'm going to speak to you about is with the Vero Beach Power Squadron. And part of the lease is the maintenance responsibility for the facility, plus the insurance is the responsibility of the lessee. As I understand it, the Power Squadron was just recently told that they were being canceled from their insurance, property and casualty insurance for the facility. So I don't know if they've explored, as many of us have on our own personals, the insurer of last resort, which is Citizens, but they have had some discussions with us as would the city be willing to include this on the city's insurance coverage for all of our buildings and let them pay us the difference of what our insurance bill would be to add them on. That would be a change from the way we do our leases and licenses, and it would only be able to be done if council were to amend the lease to allow that. So I just wanted to bring it forward to have some public discussion to see if the council was interested in doing that, or if the council wanted to have the Power Squadron go back and see if they could get the insurance from Citizens or the insurer of last resort.
Well, it seems like this would be kind of a slippery slope if we did it for one lessee. Wouldn't, then other lessees would want us to do the same thing, and then what if there's a claim? What if someone loses their roof? Does the entire insurance for the city of Vero Beach go up? Because, it seems like that's what happens.
Well, that's typically what happens if any insurance, if you have a claim,
Yeah.
your policy's going to go up from there.
So while I feel for them, our insurance went up. So I don't know.
So I think the Power Squadron's here to also address you, so.
Okay.
Please do.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Daniel. Well, we're Daniel and Catherine Thomas, 28 Forest Park Drive. And I think, tonight we're going to try to represent the Power Squadron as best we can. Since we had our lease in 2015, we have a whole bunch of brand new members on the board that probably didn't hear everything that we did back then. Very, very briefly, the Power Squadron actually built their building in 66. And that's right, we were here 56, but in 1966, we actually built our own building with no outside funds. Since then, we've been good stewards of the building. We continue to improve it. We just recently painted. Every time anything happens to it, we improve it. In December, Waddell Insurance Agency notified us that our insurance was canceled with no reason. This is just the building insurance. We continue to have our liability insurance. It was canceled for no reason. So they went out and found another insurance agency to cover us. The previous insurance policy was $3,000. The new insurance policy was $11,000. We are a nonprofit, don't charge anything for all of anything we've done, which includes, by the way, since we've been here, over 5,000 people have gone through and taken our safe boating course for no cost. In 2001, we started doing vessel safety examinations, where we go out and check all the safety boats, or all the boats, to make sure they have all of the state and federal safety equipment on board for no charge. Since we started in 2001, we've done over 2,000 vessel safety checks. I'm in charge of that, and I'm happy to do that. So all of the things we do are nonprofit. So basically, we have to raise our own money. So a huge insurance cost like that is really devastating to us. Now, just today, as a matter of fact, we've received a hard copy of the insurance thing from Waddell to see why. Oh, by the way, I forgot. The new insurance policy we had was also canceled. And Waddell told us that since we've been canceled by an insurance agency, we cannot get insurance. They said, that's it. We can't find anybody else to give you insurance. And we found out why, and it was because what our roof was. And we have a metal roof that is 27 years old. And the pictures that they showed us that we received today find out why. So something we thought was going to happen, now we know will happen. So we will replace the roof as soon as we can. So we will put a new roof on there. Takes almost all of our funds we've had, but we knew this was coming some down the line, so we had money set aside for that. So we will do that. But also in our current lease, there's a clause in there that may allow you to give us this. It says in here, in the event, basically, that we can't get insurance, to protect your interest, you should do something like that. We contacted Kathy Taub, your risk management person, and asked her, would it be possible for us to be included in the very large umbrella policy that all the other places have in town? They said, yes, it could be done. And she said, you need to get city council to approve an amendment to your current lease. Said, yes, it could be done. And what we would do in charge then would charge you rent. And they said probably the rental charge would probably be around $700 a month, which is something we could afford. And actually, it is probably, if we can ever get insurance again, which we don't think we can, it's going to be so expensive, it will cost at least double that amount, which means probably in a few years we're out of business. I mean, we are a nonprofit, and we live on the shoestring as it is anyway. All of our courses we charge for what national organizations asks us to pay for the materials, and then we don't charge or any of our students anything above that. So all we're asking that please include us in the huge umbrella thing. You may get the building back then because it's your building.
Well,
We are the lessee. The city, the property belongs to the city, and we are a lessee. To just tell you a little bit more about the insurance premium that we found an insurance company in December that would supposedly cover us. And so we paid the $10,917 for that premium. Unfortunately, we just got a notice February 9th that they had canceled because they do not like our roof. Of course they don't like our roof, and that's happening all over the state at the moment. And that's just something that we accept. However, we do have a clause that if we can't get insurance, then it might be up to you to consider doing the insurance for the building. And we can't get insurance until we get that roof done. That's going to take time. So that's why we're asking for you to cover this under the city building. I'm not sure, is this the first time they've ever done this? Or do we have other buildings in town that are covered?
There's only one other that the city has done, and it's because of its location adjacent to the ocean, and that's the Seaside Grill building. All the others provide their own insurance.
Did you get a return of your $10,700?
They,
We hope.
well, we're 3 months into it now, so we're not going to get that whole amount. And there are taxes that are involved, many taxes that are involved. We don't know exactly what we're going to get back. The roof is going to take all the money that we have and probably what we can raise from our members. We do have 200 members. They did step up when we had this policy of $10,000 or $11,000 and made donations. I know, we have backing of our members, but we only have 200 members. So that's the thing. If we can't get insurance until our roof is repaired, it's going to be a time, we don't have insurance on the building. And who's going to be liable for that if we cannot get insurance? And it's written in the lease that if we can't.
That's more of a legal question at that point.
But
what
if
you're
they,
saying.
if they do get a new roof, if you do get a new roof, then hypothetically, your insurance, you'll be eligible for insurance, and it probably will be less because you'll have a current roof.
Except that it takes time to do that. And our policy ends on the 26th of February. So, you're faced with the city's faced with a building that's not going to be insurable for a period of time until we get that done. So that's our quandary.
I have a question for,
Okay.
would it be possible for us to cover their insurance for a specified period of time to give them the opportunity to replace their roof, if they have the money to do the roof? Could we not,
If that's the will of council, I think you could do that. You could do it for a specified time period, set a time that the roof would have to be replaced.
because if not, what else would we do? If they can't get insurance, what would we do?
Well, the lease is pretty specific that the lessee is in charge of, responsible for all the maintenance and any loss that would occur if it's not insured.
However, we have no option at this point. Citizens takes a long time to get approved.
Yes, it does.
And we did try to do that, and we never heard back from them. So, it's a quandary for us as well. So we're bringing this to you because we know that we are not insurable at this time. Now, if the city put us on their plan, they probably would do it for a yearly, I would say it would be for a year, a policy. I don't know if you can even get policies for a few months.
When is your cancellation effective?
The 26th of February.
26th of February.
And we had a very little time to prepare for that. So that's why we don't have bids on our building at the moment.
Might be a grace period. There might be a grace period on that of 30 days.
Yeah, usually.
Or
Have to look at the insurance policy.
I guess what we need to know for help this discussion is how soon could you entertain the re-roof project?
As soon as we get bids.
We have to get bids, find,
A year, within the next year?
oh, yes.
6 months?
I'm hoping. I just think that usually insurance policies are for the year. The city had given us a possible amount of money that we would pay you back every month for the insurance cost. So we're going to be paying you back every month instead of getting our own insurance policy. So that's how that would work.
The question is, if you got a substandard roof, obviously we got talent in risk management could tell us, but I don't see how we're gonna insure it. The other thing, that building is below the 100-year flood elevation.
Well,
There's all kinds of issues with that building from an
You are
engineering
certainly
standpoint.
right. And
I-
that policy that she talked about included the flood insurance as well. And it amounted to, if it amounted to about 10,000 anyway, but we would be paying you back on a monthly fee. That's going back to you.
So, I'm gonna try to summarize this. You've been canceled. Have you gone to citizens?
We tried, but that takes a long time, and we are a commercial entity, and so that makes it more complicated.
Okay.
It does.
And so, your insurance ends in like a
4 days.
week,
Mhm.
right?
4
Like
days.
five-
4 days. It's
4
a few
Okay,
days.
Even worse.
May I make a
Gotta make it
suggestion,
worse, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Right, so it ends in,
And I'm pardon for interrupting. It's usually not good policy to have these kind of discussions at the dais at the meeting. And the reason, I know you're asking questions to find out the facts. I would suggest that we take some time to discuss it with the Power Squadron, and let's see all the details, let's find out all the facts, the dates, the amounts.
well, that's what I was getting to. What I
That,
was getting to is-
rather than having to do it here, we can come back next meeting. I know that the insurance is gonna expire, and I don't know if there's a grace period. That's something they need to find out.
It doesn't sound like there's a grace period. Waddell said that they cannot find any other insurance for us.
So if you don't have insurance for the building, you're in violation of the lease.
Exactly.
You're in breach.
That's exactly.
So,
Based on
We
what
don't want to be.
I
Attorney
understand.
Turner has said, I would prefer that you make it,
I'm sorry?
we can have, this discussion needs to take place in a conference room with the attorney, city manager, and have a discussion with them and have some type of options of what the city can do, or cannot do, then it can be brought to city council for discussion and vote. At this point in time,
It is.
this is, we don't have enough information, and for us to sit here and query you back and forth
This is
be endless.
something that we could have discussed several months ago if we'd have known about it.
Well, if we had-
So by coming at this time, it puts us in a difficult position. I know that you're asking for some things that as the city, it's not what we normally would do. So we need to spend some time discussing the options. And I can advise city council that though if the insurance is without any grace periods expires on the 26th of February, we can look at the notice that to advise them that the lease is in breach. And we need to send a breach letter out to that effect. But that doesn't mean we can't discuss it and talk about trying to arrange a resolution.
So I think
Would that be with the whole
Tammy,
council?
yes. I think you should arrange a meeting with the right people within the city to have this discussion. Tammy can coordinate that meeting for you, and that's your best course of action, because to be quite frank, nothing's gonna get decided tonight.
Okay.
On nothing.
Thank you
You'll have
for
to bring
listening.
back for council.
And then it'll have to be brought back.
Yeah.
And our next meeting, I believe, is March 7th. So,
We will be happy to talk.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should give them my agents.
All right. City Attorney matters.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I put this matter on the agenda, the docket for today. The Fourth District Court of Appeals has scheduled oral arguments in the appeal by the town of Indian River Shores in the rate case in which the city was successful in obtaining a summary judgment. Oral arguments are set on April the 4th, which is a city council meeting date. And the arguments are scheduled for 10:30 a.m. in West Palm Beach.
Oops.
I'm going, city manager's going, and there might be other representatives from the city going, but attending. Anyway, it takes usually an hour to an hour and a half per case for arguments, which would put us around noon to conclude, and then back here for a 1 o'clock city council meeting, which might make it a little tough since I have a 20-year-old vehicle. And it doesn't, I do drive fast, but just, it won't go very fast. But anyway, I'm asking either that the city council meeting be postponed that day to a later time in the day, such as 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, or if we could see fit to having it the next day on April the 5th, if everyone could check their calendars. That was Tammy's suggestion, and I think that's probably a good suggestion. That way, make sure we'd have plenty of time to get back, notwithstanding the traffic on I-95.
That's either later on the 4th or the 5th works for me. I'll make it all happen.
Yeah.
Is the 5th all right? I think that's probably the best option. We can do it
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock on April the 5th.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we'll send out proper notice and everything.
If you could just give me a quick motion on that and second, and,
Okay.
and heck yes.
Motion to postpone city council meeting to April 5th at 1 PM.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mrs. Udance?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Catuno?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. So we got city council, member days, right?
Yes.
Okay. Try to make this brief. Couple of items. There's a number of events that happened this weekend. The people who attended them will probably mention them, so I'll just mention the one that I attended, which was the Purple Heart Cane ceremony at the Navy SEAL Museum. This was a extremely moving ceremony done. I believe it was either 34 or 36 recipients this year. And it's something when you listen to the stories, and they were all men, when you listen to the stories of these men and what they went through, and bestowing upon this, I guess it's a thank you to them, and to memorialize their sacrifices for their country. It's a very moving ceremony, and if in the future, anybody who can, I would recommend that you attend that ceremony. It's moving and very educational, and you find out things about what people can endure and survive through, which the only word I can say is amazing, just amazing. Second, I think I have mentioned in previous meetings, we've had some discussions on the 13 acres that the city owns. There used to be the old nursery, in discussions with the Florida Housing Coalition for Affordable Workplace Housing. We have moved to the next step with them. They are going to be having a Zoom meeting with myself and planning and other interested individuals, and having a discussion on whether or not that property is going to it's going to be doable or not as we progress through that process. And I'd like to keep everyone informed of that, because I serve on the Affordable Housing Committee for the county, and that would be very impactful if we were able to actually do something there. And last but not least, there's been a number of packets that have appeared on people's driveways, and I'm not going to address the packets in general. I'm going to address the response to that from the religious community. And I specifically have had some conversations with Robert Bernholz from Temple Beth Shalom. I had a meeting with him in the head of his council there. Essentially, he is coordinating with the rest of the religious community within our city and county to begin a Start Kindness campaign. And that is something that I support. I think he's going to be asking for city council support as individuals. We make individual decisions on that. But essentially, it's something he wants to coordinate within our city to try to be a counterbalance to the situations that have been going on that we've all read and we've all seen in the news. So I would like to reach out to people listening, people here, people on the council, to seriously entertain becoming part of this campaign in any way, shape, or form that you see fit. And I believe that it's going to be bring light to our community and help our community in general maintain our reputation of being Vero Beach, a community that is kind to people, who work with people of all ilks, and reinforce our reputation for the kind of community that we are. And that's it.
Oh, all righty. Well, I've got a different topic in mind. So about overpasses over the railroad tracks occurring on US 1. Now that we've gotten a lot more information from FDOT about what an overpass on Aviation would look like, I feel like it's very clear that that is not a workable solution. It's just not a practical place for that. I mean, we have pointed out in the MPO meeting that FDOT has not done a study to determine where the best place would be for an overpass, but I feel like I think that Aviation is completely out of the question, because it would take up so much private land, and that's just not what we're about. And I was thinking that I would like to adopt a resolution opposing the overpass if there's an appetite of council to proceed in that direction, but opposing the overpass over Aviation Boulevard. That would be something that I would be interested in doing. Anyone
Support your effort.
chime on it?
I would support.
Before I would support, I want to make sure that FDOT is, doing community engagement and all of those things, because they have meetings coming up, don't they?
Well, they just had one.
Summer.
Yeah.
They had a meeting at our request about a week and a half ago. The next meeting is scheduled for
Had a dozen people there.
for
Most of them
September.
people of that property.
Yeah. The meeting was noticed of the adjacent property owners. A meeting in September would be a broader public meeting. So that's what is going to be going on as they move forward. There are 6 alternatives that were proposed. And as we looked at it, the one that was probably the one that staff supports is the at-grade intersection, which is a normal intersection. So there's a combination of overpasses and underpasses and different kind of things. So if it's council's pleasure to do a resolution, we might want to do it in support of the at-grade intersection.
Okay.
That way we tell them exactly what we're looking for.
I was going to, rather than having a negative
No, I
part, make it a positive, that what we support is the at-grade
We're in favor
Yeah.
of this.
Plan 1 that was presented at the workshop. And we could have a copy of it attached.
I would also say that we need to have individual meetings with the adjacent property owners and things like that as a council also, and really get their buy-in on that too, because I don't want to sign a resolution that goes against what the land.
We'll work on it and then bring back something at an appropriate, in the near future.
Okay.
Is everybody all right with that? And,
It was great.
all right.
Thank you, Vice. You have anything else?
Nope, that was
Okay.
it. That's all I have.
Council members, Zudans, you're next.
I actually have nothing today.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, skipping along, Council Member Carroll.
Thank you very much. Kudos to the Sunrise Rotary Club for the Craft Brew and Wing Fest. Great event, continues to grow. They do a lot of great work with that money that spreads out throughout the community. So I was glad to participate again, although I was forced to pour beer all day by myself
Oh, poor guy.
and not drink any. That's the question.
I heard it ran out.
No.
Yeah, and
Funny,
all because of you.
And the second thing, I personally want to acknowledge the thoughtful, non-political comments made by Chief Curry to Ray McNulty as reported in the February 9th, 2023 edition of 32963. He addressed the proposed bill currently filed with the Florida legislature regarding permitless construction or constitutional carry of a firearm without some level of knowledge and proficiency. As of today, I think the United States has experienced 82 instances of mass shootings since the 1st of January 2023. We are talking more than 10 mass shootings per week. This is an epidemic and it has to stop. But without leaders such as Chief Curry paving the way, we will continue to put more legal guns on the street, which inevitably leads to increased violence and carnage.
Well said.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief Curry.
I'm done.
I don't think you're done, but you're
And last but never least, Councilmember Neville.
I have two topics. One topic is a request for money from you all. You may, I'm sure it never goes unnoticed that when you look to the rear wall of the council, you see all of our past mayors. But for the general public to see those mayors, the only way they can really do that is to stand at the very end of the council seating and then look up. We have 5 rows of 11 images. There remain 3, and then we're going to go to a 6th row. In doing that, we'd have to elevate it even further, and I think it would become utterly impractical. We're in the process right now of redoing our council chambers. So it's my proposal to you that in fact we take those images, resize them from 8 by 10 to 5 by 7, and put them into a group of 3, if you will, frames. And that would give us 60 images, the way that we have got it designed with our friends at Frank's Hang Up. In order to do that, we need to scan and we need to print and redo the plates. The total price for that would be on the order of around $3,000 to $3,500. And I'm begging your indulgence to allow us to be able to proceed forward with that project. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Where would the
Same
new
place,
ones-
same
they would go in
position.
the same position? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
but they would be smaller, and you could then, small people could actually see the top
You
image.
didn't say that, did you? Lucky Tracy's not here.
It's fine with me.
I'm not in favor of spending additional money after all of the money that we've currently been spending on surveys and all this other stuff. If there's another way to do that by taking donations or finding a way where it's not going to come out of taxpayer funding, I'm all for it, but I'm not willing to spend taxpayer dollar on it. As much as I like the idea, and my husband's one of the mayors that was up there, I would be hopeful that we could find a different way to do it than spend taxpayer money.
Is yours a motion?
Yes, so I'm putting forward a motion that we provide $3,500 so we can get this project done and installed sometime in April.
I'll second it.
How come, I understand what Council Member Zudan's position here. I mean, the $3,000 and $3,500, if we can't find $3,000 and $3,500 out of our budget somewhere, which won't affect.
Something so frivolous.
Yeah, I understand. I don't disagree with that, by the way. The thing is, how come we now just hearing about it?
I know, right? That just.
Yeah, why didn't we have, I mean, why hasn't this thing about the council chambers has been going on since a long time, and since last December. And now we suddenly hear about, I know it's only $3,500. I understand that.
That's a lot of money, no matter.
But no, but what I'm saying is, why are we hearing about it now? How long has this been in the planning stage? I mean, how long has this been in the planning stage? Really? I mean, then we hear about it. It just,
But not in time to get it done.
but, yeah, so if you don't act now, we can't get it done. I mean, I don't understand this. I really.
Well, I don't think there's a
It's only
deadline
$3,500.
on it. It's not
I mean,
like
someone couldn't come to us and say, hey, by the way, or send us an email, say this is what we're thinking about doing?
I can't do that with you.
You can send it to Tammy, and she can distribute anything to us.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I would like to do this, and, I mean, that could have been done months ago, and we could all, we could all ranted and pontificated at what we liked it or not.
I'll
Now-
fully accept responsibility for delaying the request. But it lays before us at this moment.
Well, why don't we just like sleep on it? We'll try to think of other possible things we could do with the photos. Maybe someone else. Now, that you brought it
Maybe,
up, now I'm starting to think,
Mayor.
what can we do with those?
Move the table this.
Can we table it?
May have a comment from the public on this. If
Oh, do we have public comment?
somebody may volunteer the money. No.
I guess we're not gonna have any comment? Oh, we are. Oh, here we come.
There's a public
Thank you.
Fantastic.
She's bringing a check? Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Mary Esposito. No, I don't have a check. I just had my roof done, okay? We're not going there right now. I'm Mary Esposito, and I just bought the house at 1216 43rd. Aren't there like a print shop or an organization that might be able to fund the 3,500 that we could find in the community now that it's been proposed, instead of just automatically going into taxpayer money? I kind of agree with that, but I also agree with the, now we got the tennis money, so, back and forth either way. But there's got to
tennis
be
money before
somewhere
you
that
have
would
it.
want some free advertising by the city to do this for us, to print out things and give us some frames.
It's not the
You know what
printing
I
part,
mean?
it's the framing and the.
It's the scanning and printing and
No,
stuff.
Scanning and printing, that's cheap.
Okay.
Because I'm going to do the scanning. The printing will be done off-site. So that part is relatively inexpensive. The hard part is large frames and the glass that goes with it and the mats and cutting the mats. And that's a considerable amount of money. We are getting a comfortable discount from the company that we've gotten bids on. But,
You just asked for public comment, and I was.
and thank you, and I appreciate that. yeah.
Figured I'd come up and actually speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think this should be tabled until we actually explore whether there are options of people who are willing to donate. The public isn't even, I mean, thank you for your comments, but.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like, we can make a motion to table, right? I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion till,
You move the table?
I'll move to table.
I will second the motion.
Can we have a
So
roll?
what happens with the motion that was already on the
Motion
table?
is,
This motion has to be voted on first, and then, right? Yes. So this motion gets voted on first.
Okay.
Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Neville,
No.
Mr. Carroll,
No.
Mrs. Udans,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Catuno.
Yes.
We can table it.
Passes 3-2.
It's not going away. We'll still do it.
That means the other motion is,
tabled indefinitely till it's pulled from the table.
okay. So,
Okay, I have one other matter. I may take some time on this. So could you put up my photographs for me, please? So this is about derelict boats. And they are the scourge of the Indian River Lagoon. There are dozens and dozens of them along the 156 miles of the Indian River Lagoon. Here are some in our immediate vicinity. So slide one, there's a view from the Barber Bridge, and there's actually two vessels there, but you can only see the one that's right in front of us. Next slide, please. And that's what it looks like. It appears, if you look towards the bow, it appears that there might be an anchor line there. There's not.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. This thing, the only reason this thing is sitting where it is either because the keel's in the muck or the mast is in the muck. So we'll have a king tide along here sometime soon, and we'll likely have a decent breeze coming out of the east, and we're going to have a navigational hazard on our hands. So this is a really, this is truly a serious situation, and we're stuck with the bureaucracy that we talked about earlier today. Next slide, please. Now, there's the other one. You didn't notice it on the first picture, but that's into the mangroves, and it's obviously badly damaged and should be removed as well. It's been there for months. Next slide, please. And here's a case. This actually, I in my boat, I go by this regularly. It is a beautiful, beautiful vessel when it was new, and it could have been restored to its newness had this not happened to it. And Keith Druitt and I and others have made every effort we could to get this declared as a derelict vessel. It was near derelict, if you will, for several months, and we've made that report, but we didn't have a lot of success. Now, for $2,000, as Keith said, that could have been towed off and dealt with. Now it's, and I think it's a lot more than $10,000 or $11,000 to get someone to dewater, lift it, put it on a barge, and haul it somewhere. But anyway, that's what's happened. We saw that thing deteriorate over time. Next slide. Now, here's our case in point. This boat obviously doesn't go anywhere. And you'll notice the little red arrow pointing to that very thin line secured to the mangroves, which is, I think, totally inappropriate. And so I've had a nice meeting with Captain Monaco and Monty, and we're going to make an effort. So here's what I failed to tell you this because I am trying to get this done quickly, but I did want you to know about it. Any sworn officer may in fact cite a vessel that is derelict. Any sworn officer, including our own. And so we're making an effort to have our own officers, if you will, cite these vessels and see them through to conclusion. I think we all know full well that Fish and Wildlife deals with on the water, on the land. They have a huge responsibility in trying to get things like this done. Is not necessarily at the very top of their priority list. So anyway, I've asked Captain Monaco and his crew to go out and examine this vessel, make their judgment on its status as a near derelict vessel. If it is so, he can cite it. One of the things for sure is that two issues that are not correct. It's not tethered to an anchor. It's tied onto some, which is inappropriate and not permitted by law. Secondly, it has no anchor light. And if you have a vessel, presumably it's at anchor, we'll call it that, it needs to have, at night, it has to have a light at the top of its mast. If you don't have a mast, it's a little thing on the back of your powerboat. Nevertheless, it has to be on when it's at nighttime, and that's not the case here. So I think we need to do something about it. The other thing I would encourage is that when I know there's a meeting coming forward to speak with our legislators, and I think a couple of things need to take place. One, we need to encourage FWC to get more staff to be able to deal with issues like this. And secondly, I think we need to change the Florida law, which the property rights on these vessels especially the sunk ones, are as good as they are as if they are not sunk. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. Once that vessel is sunk and the owner is notified by certified letter, it's off the books and we're towing it out of there. And he'll have to pay the price for our expenses. Right. So that's my view, and I would ask you, Monty, and whomever else is going to participate in our legislative meetings that are coming up, that be a priority matter. So anyway, I wanted to report what we're trying to get done here, and I thank you, Monty, for your support, and our police department, and hopefully we can get this under control. I had other photographs, but I wasn't able to find them in time to present them to you. There are other sunk boats in our neighborhood, and it's like I said, it's a scourge on our lagoon, and the ones that are tipped over, they're losing fluids, and so oil and other fluids are seeping out as we speak. It's a terrible situation. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Good job.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. So at 5:54 PM on February 21st, 2023, meeting is adjourned.
There's a arm.